Arvid is here.
Yeah. Cool.
Hello.
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 Okay, it's better.
So I saw there's no topics on the agenda, but let's see if...
Is it?
Yeah. There's one thing I added on the agenda for next week. It was interesting. I was at the Open Source Summit last week.
Yes.
And there I also met
Gurgley.
Gurgley. How do you say his name?
Gurgley, but yeah.
Exactly. So I pushed him to come to this meeting, and I forwarded the meeting invite, and he committed to join next week, next Monday.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I will not be. Yeah, so I will not be there next week.
Oh, okay.
But I asked him already to come to the meeting.
I know. Marcus told me. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's okay. Yeah, it's good that you push again. Yeah, it's good because see, I think they talked to Ricardo. I think is what he told me.
Yeah.
So yes,
I also had a chat with Ricardo. He was also there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I think Gurgley in the meantime, so they put KPT to the CNCF, right?
Yeah.
So he has some experience, so it's good. I want to get it going. My target is by the end of the year. It should go there, right?
Yeah.
Because it also will enable a number of additional people. Because from the moment, so right now, from the moment in the foundation, people look at the project differently. And so from that perspective, I think it's a good thing to have it there, because then people see it as part of the foundation. So that means that also the software, so there is some governance around it and stuff like that. So it gives more confidence to people on the project itself. That it has a stable base and a foundation and what have you. So that's kind of why I believe it is important. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's nice. And I think the sandbox part should be quite easy to get in the sandbox, but he'll say more about it. I mean, I think at one point you need like 5 companies contributing, but they were not there yet. But I think we have now. I saw that his name from the Fachhochschule, the one he's now also contributing. So we already.
I think we are at 5.
We are at 5. Okay, then.
Yeah, because there is some people from Renater. I mean, yeah. So overall, I think if you count all of the contributors to all the repo, you are like easily to 10 people, because there's some people from
companies, not people.
Yeah, companies. So even there was like the guys from the university in Italy who basically helped for Telecom Italy. So they were evaluating SDC. So there are some people who actually put some PRs from there. So it's a bit of a mix. If you count all of the people and the organizations where they belong up, you get close to 10, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah, and excited for the presentation next week of Marcus and Alex.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, they have a talk in Germany, right?
Yeah, I saw the dry run last week, and it's nice with a cool demo and.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So let me take the agenda. Share my screen. What is the screen? See my screen?
Yep.
Okay, we don't have explicit topics. Okay, but then I think we at least said that we were going to. I did not do the project board yet. The first thing that we were going to discuss was the release content, right? Or has anyone topics? Okay. No additional topics? Maybe they'll come during the So first of all, let's discuss these, right? So this was what we had on the lists. I'll keep these for now, right? And then, so I think here, config server, so this is the PR 357, right? Deviation delete. I think, Hans, you are busy still, right? So we still found a bug, it seems, right? Is it possible to give an update to the team with respect to this? Is Hans on the call?
Yeah, he's unmuted, but we don't hear him.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't hear you, Hans. I don't know if you're trying to talk.
No, we cannot hear you. He's coming back, I think.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
okay.
Perfect.
Yes, so we are busy with testing the explicit delete. I identified one more issue which Marcus is looking into right now. So I believe once we fix that, I think we should be good to release.
Yeah, so the issue is with the delete of a CR is that...
Yeah, so when we delete a CR that has revertiveness explicitly disabled, and we delete the original intent, what happens is config server then does a transaction of both the original intent and the deviation. And that results into an error at the data server side. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's the case. I did find, so maybe relate to this, Hans. I had an action of last week to the orphan flag, right? Which
Yes.
is, so I saw that the current code does not have it. I have added it in this PR as well. Now, what I was not sure about is when there is a, so in the case of non-revert, non-revertive, if there is a deviation and we do a delete, should I also include the orphan on the deviation? I think I have to, right?
Yeah, I guess probably that has to be the case.
Yeah, so I think that piece I have to code, right?
Because when you set the orphan flag on the original intent and you delete it, it will not result in a transaction. Config will become unmanaged config. So I believe the deviation as well, if it's set to revertiveness set to false, and then you delete the original intent, you also don't want to transact towards the device. So yeah, I think those go hand in hand. So I saw that you added the flag on the CR, but I assume that the Boolean is not reflecting that of the original intent yet, right? The orphan flag.
I added it in the deviation.
Yeah.
In the config I do right now.
Yeah.
But I don't do it for the deviation. And so that's my question. I believe my view is I have to add it, but I don't have that in the code yet, so I need to add that. So this is on me, right? Yeah, which was one of the actions I have here. I added it for the config, but not for the deviation. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully we can fix this week, and then that merges, right? I believe the linter on the CI pipelines, I know that Severin had a number of PRs that are being merged. I think there was an issue with the caching, which has been fixed. Is Severin on the call? No. Okay. School starts again, so he's probably busy. I don't know. So I believe there are PRs for each of these. I also can give an update on the metric. So there is a PR that has been merged. So the metric issue. So what we found as an issue is that, first of all, if you test with a kind cluster that is of version 0023, that which was the one I was using, they are so they are very permissive on the network policies. So meaning that if the network policy that we have in our artifacts was actually wrong or incomplete, and as a result, when you were testing with a kind cluster that was a version beyond 0023, the metrics were not accessible. Whereas if you tested with a kind cluster of 0023 and below, it was accessible because the network policy was not implemented properly in the kind cluster. And this is why it worked for me and not for him. In the meantime, the PR basically has updated the network policy in the artifact. So from the moment we release, this will be included, but that also will mean, So for both older and, let's say, the newer kind cluster, they will both work. But what I was trying to say with the kind cluster is try to use a kind cluster that is beyond 0023, because that will have the right network policy behavior. And as such, that will prevail the issue if that exists, right? And then the second thing that I asked Hans to do is to add this metric test in the integration pipeline so that we can validate if we break something or not using a Prometheus scraper, right? Yeah. So that's the update to be added in integration. And then try to use kind version 002 bigger than, right? Okay. Any questions on that? In the meantime, I was going to see, did we have issue? Did Alex raise the issues? Not yet. So I will add. Anything else on the release content?
No. When do we not know when the release is scheduled?
So my target, we were hoping that on Friday we were going to release, but I think from the moment we have this fixed, we will release, is my take, which is, I think, before the end of the week. If we fix it today, most likely it will be today. Is that okay?
Yeah, there's no rush. It's just curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex is off today, but he'll be back tomorrow.
So yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
If there's anything for him, I can forward the message.
Yeah, so I think he was going to create issues. I was just checking for these two, right? I was just checking whether he did. and I don't see them, I think. Unless they are at data server. Do you know that these issues were, did you know, Marcus, that these issues were added? Okay. And then this is still pending. I was going to debug with Severin what the issue is here. So I need to follow up with, so that's still pending. Okay. Does anyone else have a topic? Maybe we can discuss a little bit SDC-lite. And I promised Marcus to do a write-up, which I haven't done, but I will do before the end of today.
It is not a name for this offline SDC.
Yeah, so the official name that we have is SDC-lite.
Okay, nice.
So that was the name that we agree, or that came out of the poll, right? Although I found Lite not a very good name, but we decided, so it's done, right?
All right.
I think also Marcus changed the repo's name, as far as I understand. I haven't checked myself. So I think he also updated all the repos in the meantime. See?
Nice.
Yeah. So this is the repo, right? So there were two, so there's a number of discussions that we had. Maybe it's good to get an update. So first of all, I think, so for me, I see SDC-lite as part of the SDC family. So the idea is to use the same logo as SDC, right? Right. So that was one question that came up. Then the second thing is, maybe it's good to get your view, Fabian, right? So we had a conversation last week about the pipeline mode, right? So to use this, so I think there is, my view of the situation is we have 3 modes of operation that I could already think that we want to use this tool in, right? So the mode of operations, let me. So one is, as we have right now, right, as a CLI tool, right, which uses persistent, right? Okay. The second thing we have is we want to run it in Git pipelines, right? In CI pipelines, maybe. And so here, so what we have right now in this mode is that you do a command and the tool spins up, and when it's done, it's the process kills, right? And so as a result, we write to disk, okay? In the case of a CI pipeline, that is not ideal. I mean, it probably will work, but it's probably slow, right? Because what will happen is, for every config that you load, you actually have to spin it up and write it down. So in other words, it will be slow. So the ideal case here is what you want to have a sequence of actions, I call them right now, and that would result into an outcome, right? So you basically have a series of things, and then you want to get a result, which is either a validation. So you do a test, a validation, you do a diff, or you do a JSON output or an output format or something like that, right? Something like that. There's a third usage that I have, for example, which is in Choreo or IC4O, I call it. What is this use case is actually, so Choreo is written in Rust, right? And you want to run this tool, which is Go. So I just want to run it as a binary, right? And the sequence of action is more or less the same as this, right? So in this mode, I just want to leverage it as much as possible. That would kind of, so in my case, yeah, I do validation, a diff, yeah, and actually it's the same, more or less the same as here. I just split the use case from the pipeline, but more or less the mode of operation is the same, right? So now I think the discussion that we have had was, okay, could we build the tool in such a way that we could do all of these use cases in the same somehow without having to implement each one with very specific implementations, right? So the idea is, can we make the implementation different such that we can generalize the tool? And of course, you need to have specific things for this type of stuff, but I try to leverage that. So, and where I was thinking and was the following, is that so how could we build something that satisfies all use cases, right? With a common baseline, right? And so what I was thinking is what you could do is you actually start a process. So when you start a process, and there is, of course, you can do you can actually bind to a socket, right? Like a Unix socket, right? Or you can ask for even a port, right? But you can also start up using standard in, standard out, which is basically what, if you look to how you use LLMs these days, like if you do an MCP server, right? You actually, this is how they do it, okay? So in other words, you don't really open a socket, you just open a standard in, standard out channel, and you start communicating through that channel with the process. And so what you then do is you write a tool that basically the first thing you do is you start this up. You have a standard in, standard out interface that you can use. And then you actually do CLI commands to this thing. And then you basically need to have a start and a stop, right? Because at some point you are done, and then you have to stop this process that you started, right? And so if you do that, and so you could bind that potentially through the tool that you invoke. So that means that if you now, for example, in the first use case, so I call it, let's say, scenario 1, and oops, and this is scenario. So what you would do is, so what you would do in both cases, you could build like a Cobra CLI to it, right? And what you do is you basically start, the first thing you do is you start the process. And whether it's a Cobra CLI or something else, I don't really know, right? And then you start the process, you just interact with all the commands, and when you're done, you stop the process, right? Does it make sense? Like you build a shell, something like that, right? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah. Can I show you what I got so far?
Okay.
I think I have quite an idea on how to compose the whole stuff.
Okay. Sounds good. Sure. I'll stop sharing. And you can take the screen.
So push this out of the way. Go build. Let me just quickly build it. So we have the latest stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
So we already have sdc-lite as a command, right? We have, for instance, the config show command, right? That takes certain parameters. For instance, the -all parameter, right? We take the router 1 as the target. And then what I did was to add a pipeline file, right? And you provide that and you say pipe call.json, right? So what we've done is take these parameters and we've written them now into the pipe file, right? So pipe call JSON. We now have a command config show, all of the all of the parameters that the command provides, right, are sitting in here. Now we can append we can append to that thing if we want to validate. Yeah, I think that's it, right? So pipeline file, and it's pipe call JSON, right? So that's not properly implemented there, I see. So yeah, let's do a diff, right? So diff -t router 1.
Can you do multiple
file pipe call, right? So yeah, it's broken in that sense. But what you will have in the end is you have the set of commands, or the order of commands that you define in here. sdc-lite will be able to replay, basically, right? So whatever file you you specify under the config load, and I think I have there is pipe JSON. Pipe.json, right? So that's something that I'm testing with right now. It's doing a schema load, and the data of the schema was provided via standard in. That's why I store it here in that byte format, right? So it's loading a schema, loading a config, loading another config, and doing a config show, right? So these files you can adjust yourself afterwards, right? It's obviously JSON. And then one mode of operation besides taking these commands in via standard in, right, which is would be an option, is SDC pipeline run, and then we provide the file .json, and it's going and doing executing each and every step. Right now, I mean, if you do so, you would want to have parsable format, I guess, right? So we should come up with a proper output format where you access step 1, step 2, step 3, and get the data that was created in that step. And then yeah, that would be my suggestion.
So Marcus, what is your view on using JSON RPC for this instead of the files? I'm too biased on MCP server because that's what they use, because you have this command, so you have this RPC with command, and of course you are flexible in what they are, but they have like a predefined format to do like an action with a result and stuff like that. because then you have a standard way that is like industry-ish accepted, and I believe even Arista and Azure Linux, we support that natively as well.
Okay, that wouldn't make much.
Instead of load,
I mean,
so load means, so you have an RPC is load, right? So JSON RPC is a standard encapsulation.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I can take a look at that. I've no experience with that, so I cannot really comment, but I'll have a look.
Yeah, instead of building our own format, you just use JSON RPC because it's kind of standardized, if you will, right?
Yeah.
All the content itself is pretty open-ended, but at least the shim is standard, right?
Yeah.
And you could react on the output, no? Because I think it's nice to have a file like that, which exactly describes it, to do it again and maybe edit it. But right here, you cannot react on output. I mean, I don't know if it's needed, but
yeah, correct.
If you want some branching, depending on some output.
I would say let's build one tool and have a defined job, right? And the job is loading stuff, maybe converting data and validating. But let's not start with implementing branching and whatever, right? Build a script around it. Build a script around it with JQ or whatever. And do whatever is needed, but let's not squeeze too complex stuff into this one.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to squeeze it in here. I just wanted to mention that the other one, this would already be more built in, but maybe it's not needed. You're right.
Yeah. So I think the difference between Fabien and what I was saying and what you show here, I think right now, Marcus, is the following. So your pipeline is a file, right? And you load, right? But for example, if you want to have feedback in between one of these steps, how do you do that? Whereas if you have a command interaction, right, then you can get the feedback. That
we can do via a standard in.
Yeah, correct. But not if you load a file, a pipeline file, right? So you basically, then you're done, right? So what I was trying to say before is your standard in is a JSON RPC interface, right? Or of some sort. And so you say, as long as this process runs, right? So you basically say command in, you get feedback. Command 2, you get feedback. Command 3, you get feedback. And with that feedback, you can actually say, okay, I can stop right now because I don't like what I got back, right? Whereas if you have the file right now, I mean, the file is also good because sometimes you just say, okay, just run it for me. I don't care about the feedback. But I think Fabian, I don't know whether you want to say that, but I think what I was.
I mean, if you run it in a CI/CD pipeline, what do you want? You want the file to load. You want to record some output of what the merge configuration looks like, and you want to understand, is my configuration still valid or is it somewhat invalid, right? And all of that you will get with these things, right? You would have to access. I mean, this now is somewhat unstructured data, but that's what I said. My opinion is that we should return a single JSON array, and for each and every step that we've defined in the input file, we have some output declared in there.
Yeah, correct. But so what yes and no. So the difference is that. So here is the difference, right? Is, for example, if I define a file, okay, you're going to execute the file, right? Whereas if you give me a command interface, right, I have more flexibility on the sequence that I can execute stuff.
Yeah, sure, but I'm thinking for a pipeline, this is all you need. You need to add this stuff. That's basic steps. You have running. You add your newly generated bit of configuration on top of it. You do maybe a blame to store that if someone wants to look at it, and you do a validation. And then if the validation passes, then we're all happy in that pipeline file case, right? And the running config will always remain probably the same pointer or whatever, and the newly added one depends on the PR or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
but let's say something fails, right? So let's say I have 100 files. I have to create 999 files to figure out the consequence. Whereas if you have an interactive RPC interface, it's going to be way more flexible to interact and figure out what the hell is going on.
yeah, that's what I said. My plan is to also have standard in as a means to
Correct. So they can
shuffle in these steps.
Yeah, correct. So you have okay. Then we're on the same page.
Yeah. Then we all talk about the same thing. I was exactly also thinking what you were thinking, Wim. But then, yeah, if you have this way of putting in commands, like you said, then it's fine. Then I think we're all
you can do everything, right? Yeah, you have the flexibility.
So what happens in the background is basically all these functions that do something to the tree, right? They expect one single structure. This structure is common from an equivalent raw type of structure, right? Because if I push in some path or whatever from Cobra, it's coming in as a string, right? And I need to convert it into this SDCPB path that we use internally, right? So it's initially stored in this raw format. It is then turned into the specific format that is then given to the tree, right? So that's the sequence of stuff that's happening in the background. So what happens if you add this pipeline file command? It's only creating this raw parameter struct and serializing it as a next entry into that array. And on replaying it, it's just loading it and then doing this conversion into the actual format, and then calling the stuff the same way that it's interactively being called, taking the raw, also converting it then into the actual format, and then calling it on the tree, right? So we'll have like everything's the same sort of flow and functions that are used all through the whole thing. But yeah, the format that we store the stuff in, I can have another look what JSON RPC looks like, and maybe
it's not the format where we store it really is the command interface on the front end. Right? Yeah. So that's the JSON RPC would be over there. So basically it will be your front end interface, right? Which would be the interactive thing. So in other words, I mean, if I were to implement it, your pipeline, I would basically, so these are predefined steps. So I would parse these files and play JSON RPC to your backend process. Whereas if you have the interactive standard in, standard out, you actually have JSON RPC from the user, from the client.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. So
my idea was simply to, I mean, in the interactive mode, right? What you could do, you could again on whatever command you want to execute, right? You now change the pipeline file to the environment variable that is being set by sdc-lite pipeline in the standard in mode, right? And you just pipe it straight into that thing, right? So you could even if you do it then still interactively have the benefits of the
feedback,
command completion and so on.
Yeah, you get feedback basically in between the steps, right? The difference that I see, I mean, your pipeline file that you show right now, you could play it in the same mode as the interactive fashion.
Yeah.
Right? If you would have the standard in interface, I would implement this file using that thing.
Yep.
Because that, and I think my understanding is, I don't know whether it's correct, but that was one of my questions, is that in the pipeline file, let's say you fail or there's an error in between, let's say you have 10 steps and it fails in 3, you stop, I guess, right? And you present the error, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the interactive mode, the user can decide what he does.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I'm coming back to is that if you have the interactive mode, you can do all the other use cases with it. Because then your core is your interactive shell, and then the client side, if it's a pipeline file, uses it in one shot, if you will. I actually place it's a replay of the file, whereas in the interactive mode, it's the user you represent the standard interface towards the consumer, towards the client, whereas in the pipeline file, it's predefined, if you will.
Yeah.
So as a result, you get one implementation where you can support all of these use cases. And then even in the mode today, you could write a shell that basically says, okay, just write the result to a file, right? It's predetermined. And you're done. Okay. But I'm assuming, Marcus, do I still have to write something up for you or not?
If you're more or less happy with what you see, then I think, yeah, I said I'll take a look at JSON RPC, and then we take it from here.
Yeah, what I don't see is the internal implementation. That's what I don't see here. I see the user stuff. Right.
Oh.
So can you share what is happening internal or not?
I tried to say that already, but let me reshare my screen. Here we go. So zoomed in, it's so big I don't find my way. So what do you want to see?
Well, I just want to understand how are you spawning a process with the standard in or not, for example? My first question.
No, not yet. That's what I said.
Okay. But you are going to?
Yes.
Okay. And then this will interact with that stuff, right? With that standard in file.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
okay.
it's not a must, right? If we have that file and we just want to play that file, why would we spawn two processes and feed one from the other, right? That doesn't make sense to me. But I definitely see that there is a reason to spin one up and take in the pipeline stuff from standard in. What I see is that we will need to do something like what do we have? For instance, there is a resize command or something that you execute, and what it gives you is as output the variable definition for so yeah, a variable definition on standard out. So if you pass that to bash, you will have a variable set. And then on consecutive calls to sdc-lite with the pipeline command, it would notice that, okay, that file is, or that variable is set, and that's pointing to standard in. So I'm not doing anything local. I just pipe stuff into that standard in, and then you can execute whatever you want in these interactive steps.
Mm-hmm. But don't you believe that it's better to have one mode of operation rather than to support all of these things that all do the same? Because we end up with like my fear, and that's where my concern was from last week, is that we start building like all kinds of different ways that all do the same thing, and as a result, you have to support it all the time, right? So that's my.
Yeah, but it is a common code base, right? So if you look at
but common code base doesn't really matter. What matters is the support at the end of the day, right? So I'll come back to my concern that I said before, right? Is that if you have a core that does one thing and you spin it up and you have a common interface by which you can support all the scenarios, it's way less maintenance.
Okay.
Because I have the feeling, I haven't looked at the code myself yet because I didn't have the time, but I have the feeling we are bolting on and on and on and on, and at the end of the day, we have 50 ways to do the same thing, and I think that's where my concern is. And I don't get a feeling yet that we are not doing that. But I'll have a look at the code and point you where the problem is, or where I see the problem.
Okay.
All right. Let me share my screen again. All right. All right. Then are we? Yeah, the other thing that we have to do is the docs, right? Update the SDC page with SDC-lite information. For example, one of the things that I think is important to mention is what can we do and don't with SDC-lite versus SDC, right? People will ask that, right? For example, deviations, right?
Probably a table with some check marks, like in subscriptions.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, deviations, subscriptions, metrics. There is a whole list, I think, because I think, yeah, when people see it, I think they will ask the question, what is this and what is this not, right? And then, of course, we need to, some of the use scenarios, like usages, comments, etc. But let's do first, let's do that once we have the baseline figured out, right? Okay. I think, is Leah, you're still there, right? Is there any update on the metrics or something like that? Or not? Or are you still working?
I'm here. I don't have any updates on that yet.
Okay.
I actually just got back.
No, that's fine. Yeah. I just was wondering because you were on the call and I knew that you were working on it.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If there is no more topics, then I think we can close. Unless someone has something. By the way, next week I will be on the plane, so I will not be there, but you can just have the meeting, right? So don't wait for me. I think if Gurgly is going to be there, it would be good, that he does the update on CNCF. And then, if there is other topics, we can, add them to the list. All right. Thanks all, and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.